Imagine a world where you couldn't easily tell how hot or cold something is. No weather forecast telling you it's 32 degrees, no oven settings for baking, no quick way to measure fever. It sounds almost unthinkable today, but not too long ago, temperature was a mystery that people could only describe with vague words like warm or freezing. Then came a man who changed everything. His name is Daniel Gabriel Fahrenheit, and his story is far more fascinating than the simple number system that bears his name. Let's explore, right here, on History of Simple Things. Daniel Gabriel Fahrenheit was born in 1686 in the city of Danzig, which is now known as Gdansk in modern-day Poland. At the time, it was part of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, a bustling center of trade and culture. Fahrenheit was born into a merchant family, and his early life seemed destined for business rather than science. However, tragedy struck when both of his parents died from eating poisoned mushrooms. Orphaned at just 15 years old, Fahrenheit's life took a sharp and unexpected turn. Initially, he was apprenticed to a merchant in Amsterdam, but his curiosity for science, especially physics, was impossible to suppress. Against expectations, he abandoned his business career and pursued scientific work, focusing on one very specific problem: how to measure temperature accurately. At the time, thermometers already existed, but they were wildly inconsistent. Different makers used different scales, and there was no universal standard. One thermometer might say it's warm, while another said it's hot, all for the same environment. Fahrenheit saw an opportunity to bring order to this chaos. He began crafting his own thermometers, improving their accuracy and reliability. One of his key innovations was using mercury instead of alcohol. Mercury expands and contracts in a very consistent way with temperature changes, making it far more precise. This seemingly simple decision revolutionized temperature measurement and made thermometers significantly more dependable. But Fahrenheit didn't stop there. He realized that a good thermometer also needed a standardized scale, a consistent set of reference points. So he developed what we now call the Fahrenheit scale. Interestingly, the numbers he chose weren't random, but they weren't exactly intuitive either. He set 0 degrees as the temperature of a mixture of ice, water, and salt, a very cold but reproducible condition. Then he set 32 degrees as the freezing point of water and 212 degrees as the boiling point. This created a scale with 180 degrees between freezing and boiling, which allowed for fine precision. Compared to other systems at the time, this was incredibly useful. It meant people could measure temperature changes in smaller increments, which was especially important in scientific experiments and industrial processes. So why does the Fahrenheit scale seem so strange today? Why not start at 0 for freezing and 100 for boiling like the Celsius scale? Well, that's because the Celsius scale came later, developed by Swedish astronomer Anders Celsius in the 18th century. It offered a simpler, more intuitive system based on water's natural freezing and boiling points. Over time, most of the world adopted Celsius because of its simplicity and alignment with the metric system. However, the Fahrenheit scale didn't disappear. It remained popular in countries like the United States, where it's still widely used today. One reason for its persistence is its precision in everyday weather reporting. Because Fahrenheit has smaller degree increments, it allows people to describe temperature changes more finely without using decimals. For example, a change from 70 degrees Fahrenheit to 75 degrees Fahrenheit feels more distinct than 21 degrees Celsius to 24 degrees Celsius, even though they represent similar shifts. Fahrenheit's contributions went beyond just his temperature scale. He was also the first to discover that water can remain liquid below its freezing point under certain conditions, a phenomenon known today as supercooling. He conducted numerous experiments that helped lay the foundation for modern thermodynamics, even if he didn't use that term himself. Despite his groundbreaking work, Fahrenheit wasn't widely famous during his lifetime. Like many scientists of his era, he worked quietly, driven by curiosity rather than recognition. He eventually became a member of the Royal Society in London, one of the most prestigious scientific organizations in the world, which was a testament to the importance of his contributions. Daniel Gabriel Fahrenheit died in 1736 at the age of 50. While his life was relatively short, his impact has lasted for centuries. Every time someone checks the temperature on a thermostat, reads a weather report, or measures a fever, they're using a concept that traces back to his work. Today, even though Celsius dominates most of the world, Fahrenheit remains deeply embedded in certain cultures. It's a reminder that science isn't just about discovering new ideas, it's also about how those ideas are adopted, adapted, and sometimes held onto for generations. So the next time you hear that it's 86 degrees outside or set your oven to 350, remember, those numbers didn't just appear out of nowhere. They're part of a system created by a curious, determined scientist who refused to accept uncertainty. Daniel Gabriel Fahrenheit didn't just give us a way to measure temperature. He gave us a way to understand the invisible forces of heat and cold that shape our everyday lives. Thank you for watching. If you have suggestions for our next video, feel free to share them in the comments below. We'll be sure to give you an acknowledgement for your contribution. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the history of simple things. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more stories woven through the smallest details.